Thank you for joining the November 2020 VMware TAM customer webinar. This webinar is organized by the VMware TAM organization with the intent of providing our TAM customers the opportunity to hear great content and interact directly with great speakers that are delivering it. So please make use, of the Q&A feature to ask any questions. And if your question doesn't get addressed today, be sure to reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. Before we get into the content today, just a few things to share. Our next TAM customer webinar will be on December 10th, and we'll be joined by one of our security solution engineers, Sean Altman. He'll be going over ransomware trends in 2020 and discussing how you can use VMware solutions to obtain intrinsic security and mitigate these attacks. As I mentioned earlier, we want you to benefit from these sessions by interacting with the speakers. So if you have any questions during today's webinar, please use the Q&A feature of Zoom and we'll address them during the webinar. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded. Your TAM can make the recording link available to you. And after a few months, we'll make the recording link publicly available on the VMware TAM Services YouTube channel. And that brings us to today's topic and speakers. The latest release of VMware Horizon boasts many new features, including improvements to the platform, instant clone enhancements, enhancements to OS support, just to name a few. And Chris Halstead and Andrew Morgan join us today to talk about these new features and more. Chris Halstead is an EUC staff architect at VMware. He has over 20 years of experience in the EUC field as a customer partner and now as a VMware employee. And he's authored, I think, 8 VMware Flings, maybe more, and has worked across all areas of EUC. Today, he's working on the technical marketing team supporting all things Horizon. Also joining us today, Andrew Morgan is a staff engineer in the VMware CTO office under EUC CTO Sean Bass. He has extensive experience working in the IT industry as well, holding various positions from administrator, senior consultant, to CTO with a background in resolving desktop virtualization challenges. Andrew works with customer escalations and product roadmaps, has written numerous virtualization tools and regularly speaks at various technology events, all while working with the VMware EUC division. So both Chris and Andrew will be diving into the new features in VMware Horizon, probably touching on best practices along the way and going over some VMware Flings. Chris and Andrew, without further ado, I'm handing it over to you to get us started.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris. As Chris said, my name is Chris Halstead. I'm a staff architect with EUC Technical Marketing. Research, test, document, solutions before they go GA. Train our internal field, kind of test interoperability between products, Horizon, on-premises, and then now working in all the cloud deployment methods to the hyperscalers like Google Cloud, Azure, things like that. Working on the Horizon Cloud Control Plane, app volumes, DEM, and then work closely with Andrew on developing utilities to fill gaps where we find them. 25 years in EUC, man, I'm old. Working with things like SMS 1.0, the original Hydra, NetBUI, yeah, all that. As Chris mentioned, I have 8 Flings. None are as cool as Andrew's. They're all, small little Flings. Andrew was going to show you some really cool Flings today. I'll hand it off to Andrew.
Thanks, and I think you're being a little bit shy there, Chris. Your tools are awesome. Anyway, my name is Andrew Morgan. I am a staff engineer in Sean Bass's office of the CTO. I've been with VMware for about 3 years, where previously I was out as a principal consultant for Citrix Technologies, Microsoft, and VMware. My day-to-day job is mostly customer escalations and R&D work. Developing prototypes and building features to put into future versions of Horizon. And yeah, I'm desperately trying to catch up on Chris and his Flings, but I'm failing miserably at the moment. So that's me.
Yours are a lot bigger,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, the security team doesn't like me. I write products.
Basically, awesome. So we're going to go through today is Horizon 8 2006, kind of the release from Q2. Horizon 7.13, which is released from Q3, and then Andrew's going to go through some of his really cool Flings and demo them and all. So we're going to kind of we're going to keep this pretty informal. There's a lot of features to cover, a lot of content to cover. So please, as Chris said, use the Q&A panel in Zoom. That would be the easiest way to handle this. And then we'll pause and we'll kind of take questions as we go. First thing I want to cover is the Adobe Flash end of life. And this is a pretty critical issue for anyone who's not on at least Horizon 7.10. So Adobe has announced that Flash will go end of life on December 23rd, or December 31st of this year. There is a KB out there that we have now. We have a blog coming out in the next day or so as well. All the major browsers, operating systems will actively remove Flash. And we've tested this. There's only 3 options really. So upgrading to 7.10 or greater, paying Adobe for extended support. We don't know what that's like at this point. Or use the V API to basically manually manage these features. It will affect any customer running a version older than Horizon 7.10. Features that are not ported to the HTML console, never will be ported, are ThinApp integration with pools. It was a very lightly used feature, not ThinApp itself. ThinApp itself is still around. And then security server management. So if you happen to have security servers in your environment, should be moving to UAG, but if you happen to have some after the pivot, there would be no way to manage security servers. So I put together a script with much help from Andrew on using the View API. It's a graphical script that allows you to manage those security server components, set the security server pairing password. But it is recommended to upgrade to Horizon 7.13. And the minimum version where the Horizon HTML console was released is 7.8. And parity was achieved in 7.10. So this is a very critical issue. So if you have environments of Horizon less than 7.10, they're going to be affected by this. And there's really not many ways to get around it other than upgrading, paying for extended support or manually scripting stuff out. I wanted to cover that. So let's go through Horizon 8 2006. And we'll be kind of going back and forth on this between Andrew and myself. So first of all, Horizon 8 2006. So new branding and versioning. So what the heck does this mean? So a lot of questions on this. So we're going to a year, month versioning for both Horizon server and the client agent. It is year, month, but it's not tied to a particular year, month. It's really a version number. So it won't always correlate with the release month. It'll always be 03, 06, 09, and 12. Very similar to Windows 10. And you'll see this new branding on product installs, Horizon Client, and Horizon Console. Some general updates. So now we allow parallel updates of the connection servers, a maximum of 3 pods at a time in parallel. Pretty big upgrade is support for CBRC 2.0. It goes from 2 gigs to 32 gigs with vSphere 7. And a big one that I know a lot of folks are happy to see is removing the false memory alarm for InstaClone parents on vSphere 7. So since the parents essentially use all the memory that's allocated to them, they always threw an error in vSphere, and it was quite annoying. HTML access is on by default for desktop pools and RDSH farms, not an option to select it any longer. You can choose not to install it when you do the connection server install if you want. As I mentioned, there are several new deployment methods, and these deployment methods are basically hyperscaler solutions or solutions like VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, which is a on-premises solution that's cloud managed. And the cool thing is that they're all using the same bits as we use on premises. So it's not like a solution like Horizon Cloud on Azure, which is a totally separate code base. This is the same code base that's shared amongst all these deployment methods. The reason that we selected is because there are customized permissions that are needed to do certain things in Virtual Center. And depending on the deployment method, there are different permissions required. Andrew, you want to talk about digital watermark?
Absolutely. So Digital Watermark came out with Horizon 8, and it's built into the product now, as opposed to being a separate fling. It gives you the ability to append user specific data over the top of the session overlay. So if you're worried about screenshots being taken from outside of the organization, or mainly a deterrent for customer or for users to take a screenshot of stuff and share it around, because their details are right there in the screenshot. This is the natural progression from what we did have in the Watermark Fling. The Watermark Fling was actually a lot smarter in the sense that the Watermark Fling didn't actually display anything on the screen for the user. You could just take a digest of the screenshot from the Fling, and you could recompute it back to figure out which user actually did it. The good thing about the digital watermark is the users are aware of it there, and it's a visual deterrent as opposed to having to do a retrospective confirmation of who took that screenshot. You can configure it with group policy. It's a user-based group policy as well, and you can put the typical environment variables in there that you'd expect to see. So you can choose to tile it on the screen, put it in four corners in the middle. You can choose to use an image, and you've got some control over the rotation or the opacity and the margin around the text. So overall, it's a great security feature for people who are maybe concerned about users outside of their boundaries, or third parties coming in, and just protecting against screenshots for sensitive data. Moving on to the Horizon REST API. So this was a project that was very close to my heart, because this is something that I've been asking for since I joined VMware, to be honest. Today, any Horizon administrator who's been automating Horizon will know that we really don't have anything other than PowerShell. And on our PowerShell, we're restricted in the sense you have to use the full native PowerShell. You can't use PowerShell core. Since I believe it was version 7.10, we've been building the REST API, but I'd argue that in the 8.0 release, it's actually at a point now where it's usable for active management tasks and moving forward. We have considerable. It's very well documented at this point on the the VMware code website. You can change configuration, you can add and remove entitlements, you can not just monitor, but you can actually get detailed inventory for about farms, machines, sessions, the works. It's getting better and better. And of course, with the next drop that's coming even later, there are further quality of life improvements coming. So this is an ongoing project, but by the end, the aim will be that developers and integrators will have a full RESTful API that can do everything that the Horizon console can do. To move forward with that. The one thing that is limiting today in the Horizon 8 implementation is around filtering and paginated queries. At the moment, we don't actually expose those in the Swagger data, so you can't just convert the library today. In 8.1, we've rectified that now, so you should be able to consume the REST API Swaggers natively in something like SmartBear, and it'll spit out a full API reference for you. Yeah, so that's the new stuff. The Swagger access or Swagger UI is the connection server's name /rest/swagger-ui.html, and in there you'll get access to all the specific methods and functions that you can call as you move forward. Chris did a fantastic write-up on TechZone there, on how to interact with this and how to use it, and what data you can pull out. But what I've done, sorry, if we could move on one more, Chris. What I've actually done is, to get people kind of a head start, I've actually consumed that RESTful API using SmartBear, and I've gone to the bother of actually implementing the filters and implementing the search queries and implementing all the additional bits that weren't natively converted in Swagger today. So if you wish to start integrating with this API now, there is a GitHub library there that you can import written in C#, and you're away. You have everything you could possibly need with some examples both in Visual Basic and in C#. So yeah, that is there. Smart provisioning. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this one. One thing that I used to spot a lot in my Citrix days were people who would have smaller based farms of RDSH servers with a couple of applications on them. And the problem we had there with instant clones was, for every farm you created, you'd end up with a stunned parent for each of those farms on each of the hosts. And if it was only a small farm or only a small pool, those stunned parents started to add up quite quickly, and they became kind of quite a cumbersome, or I suppose draw on resources that wasn't really needed. And of course, we also had Composer in there as well. And between the Composer database and some of the, I suppose, quality of life around Composer, because it had its problems from time to time, we decided to obviously end of life Composer. So we needed to think about what we're going to do with instant clones and smart provisioning going forward. The idea of smart provisioning is it's an amalgamation of linked clones and instant clones, and we deploy the right type of provisioning depending on the size of the pool or the technology that's in that pool. So, for example, in a scenario where you have less than 12 VMs per host in a selected cluster, we won't create an instant clone parent. We'll use a linked clone, but without Composer and without the separate database. It's all managed natively in Horizon, but instead of having that stunned parent there, it's simply a linked clone. The difference is the child of that linked clone has a snapshot based on it, and when you revert it back to type after a log off or a shutdown or restart, it merely reverts that snapshot and reapplies the password to the VM properties. So but of course, if the density dictates that it should have a stunned parent for performance reasons, for example, with greater than 12 VMs per host, we'll use instant clones. And the team were smart enough to allow administrators to make their own decisions. So, for example, in the Atom database, you can specifically choose the type of provisioning you wish to use, whether you want to use the no parent or traditional instant clones with the PAE provisioning scheme option. So, just as an example, I mean, the overhead that I alluded to earlier on, in this screenshot here, you can see the amount of used space and memory size, occupied by those stunned parents. And in a scenario where this RDSH farm, for example, only had 4 hosts, and only had 4 VMs across 12 hosts, that memory size and that space will ramp up very, very quickly. Using
very much larger. I mean, RDSH servers, typically you give a lot more memory too than you do a typical desktop pool.
Completely agree. And I mean, the instant clones is very, very clever at what it does. And when you're deploying it at scale, the benefits can be reaped with the stunned parent. But at the smaller deployment scale, the resource it occupied outweighed the benefit. And further, they could create quite a cumbersome overhead when it came to maintenance and anything like that on the hosts themselves. I personally much prefer the linked clone method of doing things. For a myriad of different reasons, but the engine is there to choose what we think is the right type, and you can override it should you wish to. So yeah, just to echo, if you're greater than 12 VMs per host, you'll end up with the typical one. If you're using VGP or VTM or Linux VMs, that's the default option. And by default, if it's less than 12 VMs per host or Horizon AVS or mixed vCenter vSphere versions, we'll use the new provisioning method, which is the linked clone offshoot. Yeah, so that's really it. I mean, this slide kind of covers off what I've just said. If the pool starts off small, it'll start in one provisioning method, and it will flip over when the VMs start to ramp up.
The cool thing is the replica and the template are shared between both types. So a pool can automatically go back and forth between with and without parent VM. So it's pretty intelligent and pretty smart how smart provisioning will handle it.
And it was the ROSH and team did a fantastic job on this feature, in my opinion. So yeah, Chris, do you want to walk us through this one?
Yeah. So just like you typically have your golden image, your VM with a snapshot as the base for a pool, and then at this point the process is the same for both types of instant clones. So the template creates a disk-link clone of the parent VM, the snapshot, and that's used to basically join the domain. So you see these IT and then some random numbers and letters. Those are the template systems. And that's created on the data store of the parent VM. Next, the replica is cloned off the template. This is a thin provision full clone. CBRC is used for this system, and there's one per selected replica data store. This is where things get different. So with pools created without parent VMs, the replica is cloned directly. And then, as Andrew mentioned, there is a snapshot which is taken at the end. And basically, when that user logs out of the desktop, rather than destroying and recreating the system, the snapshot is essentially reverted along with resetting the VM password. On a push image, it does a full resync, just the same as traditional instant clones.
Awesome, but I'm obviously in 2006 there are still some limitations on what you can do with the link clone instant clone gaps. So unique bias ID is one of them that is not there. Same as multi-nick. The full sysprep required for instant clones isn't there either. And finally, statically assigned computer names aren't there. So there are the gaps today, but we're going to be marching down this path to really close those gaps as it goes forward. Yep. Carbon Black. So you probably heard that VMware acquired Carbon Black this year. This is an exciting acquisition for both our data center and our EUC workloads. BUs. To be honest, I was very excited because working out in the field for years, getting antivirus working on EUC-based workloads was always a difficult challenge. You had specific configurations you needed to make either in Symantec or McAfee or anybody else to get it working in a specific way. It wasn't always supported in a non-persistent method. So VMware, has the ability now to really tune our security posture to be the most beneficial one on a virtualization platform, and B, really take into account what an EUC platform looks like and how it should be tuned for that. So, I mean, so far what we've done is, and I've been involved in this process throughout, we've announced GA support for full clones. I mean, that was pretty easy, right? I mean, we just treat it as another VM. The more challenging work, obviously, is getting instant clones working in a way that we're happy with. So at the moment, we're in preview with that, but we're working closely with the Carbon Black team to get visibility on both sides of the pond in regards to the security posture from Carbon Black in Horizon, and also the nature of the object in Carbon Black in regards to whether it's an instant clone or whether it's a full clone or anything else. So those are the kind of futures we're working on right now. But just to say, Horizon 8 has full clone support in Carbon Black, and we're doing a preview on instant clone support. There is a KB linked there by Chris, and that's your guidance really on where to go with Horizon 8. And obviously, if this is a topic that interests you, just be assured that there's a lot of development work going on between both companies right now.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. One thing I noticed in Horizon 8 is some deprecation messages. So as we kind of alluded to, link clones, Composer, and persistent disk are being deprecated in Horizon 8 2006, and they're going to be removed here shortly. So it's a situation where if you're on link clones and you want to move to Horizon 8, you want to get over to instant clones. So now that 7.13 is released, which we talked about, and which we'll talk about in a bit, instant clones are available across all licensing levels, both in 2006 and in 7.13. So this is a really great opportunity to start playing with instant clones, start looking at migrating all your pools from link clones over to instant clones if you can, and then getting ready for really the future with moving to Horizon 8. A couple new things as well on the Dynamic Environment Manager side. There are two versions of Dynamic Environment Manager now, DEM Standard and DEM Enterprise. Standard is available to new and existing Horizon Standard and Advanced customers as long as they have active SNS. How it works is there are unique MSIs basically for each version, and some different registry values. And under the cover, just basically the same. It gets hidden basically, via those installations, and there are ULIT restrictions to discourage workarounds. So really, what this means is everybody has access to DEM now. So with persona management going away, we wanted to provide a way for users to manage their environments, to manage their customizations, and have them persist across environments. This also will help you in your migration process from moving from link clones to instant clones, moving from persistent disks over to something like FSLogix or writable volumes. But the nice thing is, every Horizon customer is entitled to DEM now. depending on what licensing level they have. And that segues into a document that a colleague of mine, Josh Spencer, wrote. I wrote some scripts basically that go along with the document, but the gist of it is this document will help you move from Horizon 7 from legacy technologies like persona management over to more modern peripheral management solutions like DEM, like FSLogix, like using writable volume, moving away from persistent disks. We have scripts that can help you completely automate that process. And Josh has gone through and described both manual and automated migration processes for each of the different scenarios. So definitely check out this document if you haven't, if you're interested in moving to Horizon 8. So when we talk about differences between Horizon 7 and Horizon 8, there are some, as I mentioned, some deprecated features in Horizon 8 2006. Link clones, composer, and persistent disk are deprecated, meaning they still work. We advise you to move off of them, as they will be removed in the next version of Horizon 8. They will not exist. So you want to move away from those legacy technologies. Again, using that document I just showed as guidance. And there are some remove features as well. So, support for older operating systems, the jump server, persona management, the Flex admin, which we talked about with Flash. ThinPrint has moved to VMware integrated printing, and the security server, you shouldn't be using that. That's been replaced by Unified Access Gateway. Doesn't mean you need to panic though. So, whether Horizon 7, Horizon 8, if you're concerned about deprecations, remove features, you have a ton of link clone pools, very large ones, you have a lot of persistent disk, and you don't think you're going to be able to move over to Horizon 8 anytime soon. You can move up to Horizon 7.13. Horizon 7.13 will be supported until October 2022. This KB article that's linked here kind of describes the support process for 7.13, but again, don't need to panic. We recommend, starting to look that way, but you don't need to do it next week. Let's look at what's new in Horizon Console. So some general updates. You can see more detail on pools being deleted from the machines page. You can see the client version. You can set a custom display name now for global entitlement. So you don't have to use the default name. You can use a customized name so that users have a better understanding of what they're connecting to. Much improved grid layout. I really like it. It's very very clean and very much more data is shown now when you look at different pages. There's a new admin role as well. So basically a read-only admin. So they can do everything except add other users as admin. This is a new feature as well. So this is kind of a feature to, it's been improved, the feature to help you move over to newer clients. So what you can do is you can warn or you can block different client versions to encourage your users to make sure that they're running the latest versions and not running, for instance, Horizon 7 or 5.5 versions of the client are not supported on Horizon 8. So you want different product lines, really goes both ways. So, Horizon 2006 client's not supported on Horizon 7.13, and you want to make sure that your clients have that proper client on their endpoint for whatever they're connecting to.
Chris, I just wanted to say, yeah, the client restrictions piece was so important, particularly with COVID, when we had people, we had administrators updating pools in in the data center, and updating connection service in the data center, where people were using whichever Horizon client they had lying around at home, and the administrator really had no control over the over the the agent version that was coming through, that this feature had been asked for so many times, and the ability now to notify the users as they come in that this version is no longer supported and put in a filter there for what version is there is a big win for a lot of customers. One question that came up, and I think it's worth addressing right now, if that's okay, Chris, was how smooth is the upgrade process between version 8, from Horizon 7 to version 8?
Yep.
I was just going to add that, assuming you're not running any of the legacy technologies that we mentioned earlier, like linked clones or persistent disk or anything like that, I mean, you're going to be able to upgrade just fine. You are going to get deprecation messages in the admin console in regards to certain features. But are there any blockers in there, Chris?
In the client restriction?
No, in the upgrade process from Horizon.
Oh, an upgrade. Oh, no. The upgrade process, it's the same. It's essentially the same code base. So it's not like they started from scratch with a different code base. I haven't, come across any problems. I mean, the only problem will be, if you don't move off of link clones and you try to go to the next version of Horizon, those features are gone. So you're going to want to make sure that you move before you go to like the next version of Horizon. You want to get off of link clones or stay on Horizon 7.13. But no blockers. I haven't seen any problems. I've done it a million times. A couple other questions I'll kind of talk through here. Grant was asking about looking to do these extended client restrictions in Horizon 7. There are some updates in 7.13, but as you can see here, only the 8.x client supports the warning message basically. So you can the block message. Sorry, so you can warn about older versions, but you can only block with Horizon 8. There are some. We'll talk about in a bit some of the updates on 7.13 when it comes to client restrictions. Essentially, we cross-ported this feature, so it's very similar. I think we covered all those. Not sure what Robin.
George, in regards to the replication, this is something that we're very closely looking at the moment, because you're not the first person to ask for it. I need to chase up internally as to where that conversation is. Please reach out to your TAM after this call and mention this question, and I'll get the answer for you.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, let's just continue on. So there is some more detail now on the network display page. So you can actually see, port bindings, the actual network name. You can see how many available ports there are in the environment. And you can actually see incompatible network types as well now, rather than just seeing a network name. So it makes it nice when you've got a lot of different kind of, say NSX networks out there. You can kind of see what's going on. In product feedback, so there's a new feature where you can actually directly send feedback back to the engineers, essentially, and you're having a problem doing something, or something just doesn't make sense. You're like, why do I have to go through all these steps? So you'll see a pop-up like this, basically to provide feedback. And if you don't want to ever see it again, you just hit that little checkbox, and you'll never get prompted again. If you answer it and you submit it, then I think every 30 days you receive randomly a little pop-up to provide feedback. But also what you can do is in the top right corner, you can click that little message box looking icon, and it'll bring up the same thing, so you can provide feedback. So really good way to provide two-way feedback as far as the Horizon console, Horizon in general, or things just are or aren't working well.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I put something in there recently, and they came back to me within about 48 hours. I'm not trying to set an expectation as how quick, but they gave out to me for using it and told me to just email them instead. But just to say that they are actively checking it and it's there.
Yep, that's good. Oops, wrong way. Oh, that's another kind of restriction. So we have two client restrictions. So this is basically a brokering restriction. So this is a new feature that basically you can set up what are called privileged access workstations, and both the computer and the user have to be in a particular group in order to access that particular pool. So you can really lockdown access to individual pools. This has been around on the RDSH side for a while, for a couple of releases, but now it's been added for desktop pools. And Andrew, do you want to talk about Linux support?
Of course I do, but I'm going to answer Alex's question first, if that's okay. Alex, just in regards to, the sometimes instant clones can leave some, I'm going to call them breadcrumbs, not a mess, but breadcrumbs. Sometimes, that used to happen a lot, particularly in earlier instant clone versions where you'd set maintenance mode and it wouldn't clean up after itself, or it might leave remnants lying around. There are utilities you can run on the connection server, but with every release, it's become a lot more efficient. So to say that I'm not going to be able to tell you that it's never going to happen again, because no technology is completely perfect, but it should be a lot better than it was. But there is, if you do end up with them, you do have the option to use the linked clone option if you prefer just to opt out of the instant clone method, or there is a cleanup tool that I will that I'll link towards the end to help with the cleanup.
Awesome. And I'm going to hit Anthony's question here real quick too. Is there a version of the client that's going to be cross-compatible? They're separate product lines, so totally different product lines. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, there are a bunch of features that have been deprecated in Horizon 8. So things like ThinPrint are still available in Horizon 7.13, but they're not available in Horizon 8. So they're in the client. So we never recommend, and there will be no other than, I'll talk about this in a bit, there were 3 2009 clients for iOS, Android, and Chrome. And those ones are cross-compatible. There is no Windows client or any other type of client that's going to be cross-compatible between Horizon 7.13 and 8.
Awesome. Okay, and Robin had a question there, Chris. I actually don't know the answer to this.
I'm not really sure what. I'm not really sure.
I think he's referring to the client restrictions and client blocking.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly 5.5 supports it, but it doesn't support blocking. The only one that supports blocking is Horizon 8 2006, unless I missed that somehow in testing. But I will check that. I'll check that out. Maybe it does. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so Linux support. I do like me a little bit of Linux. The older I get, the more friendly I get with Linux. I avoided it like the plague in my youth, but as I get older, I find myself on it. Particularly working in VMware, it seems to be everywhere. But anyway, so we've added support for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.8, and there are some changes around the desktop environments as per every release. So do check which desktop environments is now supported. One of the really exciting features for me was multi-session support. So the ability to do RDSH on Linux. So you can do, multiple users per Linux VM just by using the slide or minus multiple hyphen multiple hyphen session command line to do so. The one other thing that, while it's not supported right now, we do have the ability to do physical VMs or physical machines too. It's not currently supported, but if you look in the command line options for the Linux Edge, you'll find that one there too. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can test and you can provide feedback on, but currently not supported. In regards to Linux published applications, it's very, very easy to implement, just like you would in Horizon. You add a farm. So we treat it as a farm. We create a manual farm. We give it a name and all the usual settings as we go along. I'm not sure session count is supported, but I'll double check that afterwards. We choose the host. So here we choose the Linux hosts that have been manually registered against Horizon, and then we click ready to complete. So once we've created the farm, we can go ahead and then assign a Linux application to that Linux farm. So you head up here and you click add from installed application. So it'll pull back a list of all the installed applications on this Ubuntu host. So in this case, we're going to choose Firefox.
And web browsers are a very, very common use case, because folks publish web browsers. They don't want to pay for RDSCals necessarily. Yeah,
the other big one I heard personally from customers was console. They just want bash. Once they have bash, they can go anywhere. So it's rather than giving them a whole desktop just to get bash, you can do that too, which is cool. So
you gotta have solitaire,
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This has to have been Hilco. He's the only person I know
It
who'd
was
be
no
mad
go.
enough to play solid. Yeah. So you go ahead and create your entitlement, and then from there, once we've done this, the application will appear in the Horizon client like it would from a Windows farm, and they can go ahead and launch it. Assuming your SSO is configured correctly and your desktop environment is configured correctly, just launch it like you would any other app, and off you go. In Hilco's case, I think he cheated because he had it disconnected in the background, but I think that was just for brevity. But yeah, so there you go. That is the Linux application support. I think it's a very welcomed feature.
Awesome. Let's take a look at Blast Extreme. Blast Extreme, some updates in Horizon 8.20.6, full screen video, memory improvements with the Blast codec. Blast codec is enabled by default, which makes a big improvement. HEVC 444 codec is supported with the Intel GPUs, and this is the first kind of foray into the Intel space from a GPU standpoint. Supports Intel Ice Lake 10th generation, and Windows VMs only with the 2006 client. And already supported basically this HEVC 444 with NVIDIA Turing family of GPUs. Support for up to 2 8K monitors. And it seems like a little thing, but it actually makes a pretty big improvement. Sending client topology before the first frame is sent. In the previous, it would send the first frame, and then it would kind of determine what the topology was last set as. It caused a bit of additional bandwidth, CPU utilization. Been much improved on the Windows agent. Let's take a look at the Horizon agent. So some RTAV, real-time audio video optimizations, H.264 encode and decode, improved user experience for webcam usage. Everyone's using Zoom, Teams, Skype for Business. That experience is much improved. Windows tablet pen support if we're using a Windows tablet. A new UI for location-based printing, so you can kind of go through and configure it graphically now, just like you could in ThinPrint. And this is available under software settings in the GPO. Let's take a look at the clients. A big one that a lot of customers were asking for is the Teams optimization, video and desktop sharing optimization, and that was GA in Horizon 8.20.6. So the supported platform is Horizon 8.20.6 server, Horizon 8.20.6 Windows client. It's only the Windows client this time. And Teams for VDI has to be installed with the per machine option. As of Horizon 8.20.6, not supported on RDSH desktop pools or as an application pool. And we'll talk about how that changes in Horizon 7.13 in a bit. Windows client, as you mentioned, the client restriction messages, Windows 10 2004 support, Edge Chromium support for URL redirection, and you can now skip the certificate revocation list checking option. That could tend to slow things down sometimes, and you can set that via GPO. On the Linux client, Ubuntu 2004, full IP6 support, IPv6 support. You can set custom display resolutions, and there is a new SDK to allow you to fully customize the Horizon client for Linux. Mac client, not much. Client restriction messages and USB auto connect. We've done that forever on the desktop side. Location-based printing support in VMware integrated printing and the iOS client. In the Android client, again, support for location-based printing and support for passing the Android device ID to OPSWAT. Chrome supports OS 81 and 82. And in the HTML5 client, now there is Edge Chromium support. You can actually save the topology and layout, which is nice. And you can show connections launched via Workspace ONE mode. In the past, they wouldn't show up in there. Now you can see those. And let's stop here and cover. We've got a few questions in the chat. So Chris asked, "What about the status of 2009?" There is no 2009. The release the Q3 release was Horizon 7.13. So there is not going to be any 2009 release of Horizon. Any update on getting thin client partners to update their clients? Don't know.
I'll take that one if that's
yeah.
okay. Christopher, sorry, Chris. Just to say, while we provide the client to the third parties, and I know in your example the third party is a a parent company of ours. Unfortunately, we don't have any great clout to get them to update the client. If you're not getting satisfaction from them, unfortunately, it needs to be via them that we apply the pressure. We provide the clients to them, and it's up to them to update their operating systems accordingly. I mean, after this call, I will raise the question and see if I can find my a counterpart on the opposite side to see if we can get a roadmap and when we'll get that version. But right now, the answer is, unfortunately, it's pressure that needs to be applied on their end, not ours.
Let's see. Let me clear a couple of these out here. Yeah, so edge support. Travis asked about edge support for URL redirection. It's going to require both the agent and the client to be at Horizon 8 2006. Alex was asking about a couple of years ago, they moved to PSRP. Would they recommend going to BLAST? Absolutely. BLAST is continuously developed, being continuously developed. As mentioned, the BLAST codec is a default. Things like bandwidth reduction, CPU reduction is continuing. Every version of the Horizon server, the Horizon agent, and client have improvements to BLAST. So definitely recommend moving to BLAST. And that kind of segues into George's question. He's asking if grid cards are necessary for video. Do you want to talk to them, Andrew?
I'll just cover off on the so just to be clear on the protocol, just in regards to Alex's question. Every protocol has its benefits. For example, if you're trying to cram as much data as or as little data as possible, then a very, very small ISDN link or something like that, that's where PC over IP and RDP will shine. They're tuned for much lower bandwidth deployments, and that's just me being frank and honest here. If you are working with extremely small WAN links, you are going to end up with a scenario where potentially PC over IP or RDP might be slightly more beneficial than BLAST, because BLAST will try its best to make everything look as good as possible, whereas PC over IP will operate in smaller and PC over IP and RDP will operate better on smaller links. That being said, the minute you start to display video data or any kind of high moving quality data, BLAST shines at that point, and PC over IP will really start to look poorly. So the answer, unfortunately, Alex, is it depends. I would always recommend you going to BLAST over RDP, and only BLAST is the protocol you should absolutely be using right now, and you should only defer back again should you have a very specific reason to do so. In regards to grid cards, so grid isn't specifically for video. Grid is for a myriad of different things. Most people will tout user experience in the sense that a lot of what Windows 10 does today, it'll offload to the GPU, and by offloading, with no GPU to offload to, you'll find that your CPU is far heavier utilized than it would if you had a GPU available to you. There are many use cases for GPU. Many customers I've seen today are putting GPU and small slices into standard VDI desktops just to improve the user experience overall. So the GPU use case is really down to, it's not necessarily video. It could be user experience. It could be CAD. It could be many other reasons.
Yep. And let's grab Corey's very quickly. Any additional granular tuning abilities? There are quite a few now today with BLAST. So both in DEM and smart policies. Please check out the BLAST optimization guide on techzone.vmware.com. Mark Ewert put out a lot of tuning capabilities in that guide.
And just one other question from Alex there, just in regards to VROps. We'll cover VROps as a separate topic, but in regards to the kind of performance statistics and session statistics, if you look in the Horizon Help Desk console today, you'll see statistics around Blast. Blast has statistics in the performance counters. There is some in VROps, and the future of VROps will also include them too. So while RDP is minimal on data, the counters you'd expect to see in PCI over IP are available for Blast 2.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so let's look at Horizon 7.13. So some general platform updates. So Horizon now supports CVDS. It's really a vSphere 7 replacement for NVDS with NSX 3.0. As I mentioned, support for CBRC 2.0, IPv6 support with vSAN, and kind of an interesting case is support for Hyper-V via unmanaged use case, both in Horizon VDI and RDSH. And really, the example here is really a stepped migration from Citrix. So we have Citrix on Hyper-V today. We don't want to shift both to Horizon and to vSphere at the same time necessarily. It's a big shift. So you can migrate to Horizon on Hyper-V first, and then migrate Hyper-V to vSphere. This is something I was very happy to see. So sending the public IP of the end user to the agent. This is something that was very hit or miss in the past, is getting the actual public IP address of the end user, getting into the agent, and then really seeing the path. Seeing their broker gateway IP address. Whether it's a UEG F5 connection server, and really seeing that connection path. And this can be used for monitoring tools like we mentioned, VROps, control op. It can be used for determining geographic locations, and it's completely been redone, and it's much more accurate now.
Chris, just one quick question. Sorry, it's just come up on the chat, and I actually don't know the answer to it. 7.13 and REST API, did they make any further improvements on that one, or do you know?
No updates to REST API in 7.13.
Okay, so it's currently at the 7.12 level.
It's currently at 7.12. Yep.
Great. Okay. Perfect.
Yep. So some major performance improvements to both the help desk and the events UI, and this goes back to things like the events database. And there's a new API now to basically pull data from the events database. It's called New Event Summary View, and much more responsive for both the events UI and the help desk screens. One example is, one of the queries to return events basically took 2 hours and 29 minutes to run with the old API and the old query, and with a new query, it takes 2 seconds. So much improved on both the help desk side and the events UI side. I don't know if you had anything to add there, Andrew.
Yeah, so the events DB has been a little bit of a bone of contention in the last couple of releases of Horizon, and it's for a myriad of different reasons that I'm not going to bore the attendees with. But to say that we're looking very closely at the events DB right now from a performance point of view, from a data storage point of view, from a function that it's performing in Horizon, and we're getting very aggressive with removing some of the stuff that has been I suppose you could say put in there incorrectly. So in coming releases, we're going to be tidying the event DB up and making it far more efficient. This was the first of many tasks that are ongoing.
Yep, awesome. So this was an interesting feature as well. So separating the View API and the Horizon console session setting. So typically, first thing I would do when I'm just like probably most of you, get into a new connection server, I would pump up that connection server timeout to maybe 600 minutes. And what would happen is that connection server timeout was shared by the View API as well. So the View API session timeout would be 600 minutes. And what would happen is there are many different solutions that use the View API: PowerShell, Cloud Connector, Skyline, VROps, etc. And what would happen is a View API would essentially run out of sessions and cause some pretty major problems. So now you can basically separate both the HTML connection server timeout and the View API as well into separate settings. You can now customize the connection server launch timeout in Atom. And this is something that if folks are bouncing between global entitlements, or even trying to connect to a server that may not be up. The default timeout on the client side is 7 minutes. So it could be a situation where they're trying to bounce between global entitlements, and they may wait quite a long time between trying to connect to the next server in that global entitlement. Now you can basically pump that down to maybe 60 seconds, so that if the connection server doesn't respond in 60 seconds, then you can basically disconnect and then try the next one. Instaclone updates, and I'm kind of going fast, so I want to make sure I give Andrew time to go through the flings. As I mentioned, Instaclones are available to both standard and advanced licensing levels, and that does require an upgrade to 7.13. You can multi-select CVDS part groups. There is support for VMware Update Manager, unless you're using VTPM. It doesn't support Instaclones without a parent, as we talked about earlier. So you'd have to manually put this server into maintenance mode. Andrew talked about Carbon Black's, on Horizon 8 2006. It wasn't necessarily supported yet on Instaclones. Well, the good news is Horizon 7.13 with a Carbon Black Sensor 3.6 is supported on Instaclones. Some changes to smart provisioning. So smart provisioning has been cross-ported to Horizon 7.13 with some new features. So Linux VMs and vGPU will now be supported automatically as created without parent VMs. So that's a nice feature. Let's take a look at the Horizon console. So all the stuff we just talked about when it comes to the Horizon console, they've been ported to Horizon 7.13. So the different admin roles, the grids setup, that's all been ported over, as well as the Horizon client restrictions have been ported over. All those same features. Network display detail. When we look at Linux support, now there is support for the upstream GNOME shell library. And the reason that they did this is when updates would get pushed down, they would essentially squash the GNOME shell that came with the Horizon Linux agent. So customers wanted to be able to update for security reasons, to the latest GNOME shell. And now we basically respect that and use the upstream library rather than one that's built into the operating system. Ubuntu 20.04 support, again with no vGPU support. Blast Extreme, there have been some cursor updates. Sounds small, but pretty significant bandwidth savings. And we can basically move the cursor position updates off of the main encoder thread. Same thing they did for audio. And what that allows is basically the cursor position to be managed at different frames per second than basically the main encoder thread. There are several settings that you can basically make via GPU as well. Horizon Agent now supports Skype for Business fallback for external UEG connections. This was supported with F5 in the past, and now it's supported for those external UEG connections. On the Windows Agent, support for Windows 10, 20, H2, and support for that Hyper-V via unmanaged use case I talked about. You can now, something that I was surprised it took this long, honestly. You can modify installation.
Don't mention the war.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we, me personally, I'm sure Andrew, billions of times too, you want to move from, one feature to another feature on the agent, and you have to uninstall the agent, reboot, reinstall the agent, reboot. And it was a very, very tedious process. So now you can basically go through and modify that agent without needing to, uninstall it. On the Horizon client side, and this is kind of, there was a question earlier about 2009 and interoperability between Horizon 7 and Horizon 8 servers, and really the only clients that are compatible with both Horizon 7 and Horizon 8 are the 2009 clients for iOS, Android, and Chrome. And there are none, and there will be no Windows or Mac OS or anything clients, 2009 clients. So it's a bit confusing. 5.5 really should only be used with Horizon 7 server, Horizon 7.13, and the next, so the next, I see the question on Mac users. Yeah, I mean, 2006 today. The next will be, the next release of, Horizon this quarter will have a new Horizon client for Horizon 8. The only reason that they were released for those 3 operating systems we'll talk about in a bit. So the Windows client, Teams, video, and desktop sharing optimization, support for one-way trust with logins as a current user without Kerberos. It was supported with Kerberos in the past. Windows 10 20H2 support, as you mentioned. Teams optimization is the same as Horizon 8 2006, with exception of it's now supported on both RDSH and Windows 10 multi-session on Horizon Cloud and Azure. Linux client, Mac client will support Big Sur when it comes out. So now we start looking at the 2009 clients, and the reason they did this is really for iOS 14 support, support for the external mouse trackpads in iOS. Android client 29 added the ability for client restriction messages, and the Chrome Arc++ client, the Android-based Chrome client, has support for 3 monitors. The native client basically was the first Chrome client that had the new icons and new versioning for Horizon 8, with support for Chrome 81, 82, and passing the device ID to the agent. And this is important if someone's using the Google admin to basically search for a device. So I'm going to cover a couple of these questions, then hand it off to Andrew to make sure he has plenty of time to cover his flings. George asked, when upgrading net volumes to the Horizon 8 environment, should we remain on version 2.18 or update to 4? It doesn't really matter. We encourage folks to go to 4 because of the simplified application management framework. Now, what you can do is, with 4, is you can run 2.18 agents. So you can run 4 in compatibility mode. So what you can do is, upgrade your managers to 4 and leave your endpoint agents on 2.18, running compatibility mode, and then eventually move over to 4. 2009, 20, whatever they're called now, agents. But you can really do either one. We see future optimization packs. Well, Zoom has their own. So Zoom has their own optimization pack for VDI. And I don't foresee any other optimization packs besides what we have today. I mean, Andrew, I don't know if you had anything to add on that.
I would have said no, but I did hear mention of WebEx recently, and I'm not sure what the context was. So,
okay.
If Chris and team could just capture that question and let me or remind me after the call, I will very happily chase that one down. It may be a no, but something is just twigged in the back of my head that I'll go off and check.
Awesome. And one last question, Chris asked about the Chrome Arc++ client. Yeah, that's something that the 2009 client addresses is multi-monitor, so definitely check that out. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Andrew now to cover his flings.
Oh, there was a good question there around FSLogix.
Oh.
George, can you give us a little more background on what you want to know? Obviously, FSLogix is something that we do support and recommend for specific use cases because it's part of the Microsoft stack, right? I just want to know what specific context you want to refer to. So yeah. What does it bring to Horizon? Okay, so it brings user profiles to Horizon just like it does for WVD and for everything else. I mean, it was supported and usable before Microsoft acquired it.
And we have several documents. If you go to techzone.vmware.com, we have several documents on using FSLogix with Horizon, and how they were, and in our Office 365 guidance. So definitely check out techzone.vmware.com, search for FSLogix. There's plenty of content there as well.
Yeah, like it's encouraged and we support it, and there's a very, very, very funny story behind that we could share a beer over sometime if we ever meet.
From Tiva that I'd like to cover, Horizon 7.4. Yeah, it will stop. It won't stop working, but you'll have no way to manage it after December 31st. So anything below 7.8, I guess 7.8 is when the HTML5 console was introduced. Didn't reach feature parity until 7.10. So if you have 7.4, highly recommend looking at moving to 7.13 before December 31st. Otherwise, reaching out to Adobe and seeing about how much it costs for extended support of Flash. So yeah, definitely something you want to think about like right now.
Yeah, unfortunately the clock is ticking. Chris, would you mind unsharing so I can share?
Sure thing.
Okie dokie. Have you got that?
Yep.
Have you got my screen? Awesome. Okay, just making sure. Perfect. Okay, so just as at the tail end of this meeting, I just wanted to talk about some of the flings that I've written in the last couple of years that you guys might not, or guys and girls might not be aware of. These are flings that I've written for various different reasons and have made it to the Fling site. A lot of the prototypes I write will go directly to product from customer escalations or anything else. But then there are flings that were quality of life improvements or feature gaps that the product team decides not to implement or goes a different direction with them. So that's kind of what we have left over here. So today I'm just going to talk about three of them. I'm going to talk about Horizon Reach. This is kind of a real-time health view across your entire Horizon environment, a bit of reporting. I'm going to talk about Horizon Session Recording, the ability to obviously audit user behavior, and then a quality of life improvement for if your administrators called Horizon Help Desk. So yeah, that's what we're going to cover off. If for anybody who's familiar with Reach, or anybody who goes and downloads Reach after this and starts to see references to Heimdall, I'm going to tell you why you'll see Heimdall and why I'm still annoyed about this. Originally, when I wrote Reach, I wanted a fling that could see everything. It could reach into every Horizon pod you have, every site, and report all the data back to one place. Something that we sorely don't have in product today. So being a little bit of a nerd, I decided I wanted to call it Heimdall because we had a Bifrost fling as well, and legal said no. So I had to call it Horizon Reach. Unfortunately, Heimdall is still there in the code base, but it's now called Horizon Reach. So why Reach? Today, and this is a complaint or a bugbear with many of the enterprise customers I talked to today. When you look at a Horizon pod, there's lots of moving parts. You've got Active Directory, connection servers, security servers, gateways, databases, Composer, pools and farms, vCenters, and below those there's an additional myriad of items that you need to keep an eye on, like your remote pods, your database connections, your machines, your hosts, your storage, your compute usage, the works. There's many moving parts in a Horizon environment that you need to actively be keeping an eye on, or at least to be actively monitoring. And this is just a single pod, right? I mean, when we start to drill out into what would be a Horizon Cloud Pod architecture, you now all of a sudden have multiple sites containing multiple pods, containing multiple core infrastructure components, below which you have metrics that you need to keep an eye on. And this gets really difficult to keep an eye on and manage as you go forward. Looking at a global entitlement, for example, if a user clicks on a global entitlement that's across sites and across pods, trying to troubleshoot an issue with that and find out where the user is, what are the dependent objects along the way, which specific vCenter is going to affect which global entitlement, etc. The visibility just was not there in product, and it was something that was becoming a bugbear from conversations that I was having. And one key customer that I was dealing with when I was writing Reach, they had 50,000 VDI desktop sessions. They had 20 standalone pods, so they weren't even using CPA, 20 standalone pods, and at least 30 pools per pod. For them, management and monitoring in a single place just wasn't achievable in product, and that's what I set off to do with Reach. But I mean, when I drilled into the use case and what they wanted, I mean, really all they wanted was this little corner in the top left of the old Flex console that told them where the problems were and what was healthy and what sessions they had active and any problem VMs or hosts and that kind of stuff. So with that in mind, I decided to sit down and write something for this. And to be clear, Reach is not a monitoring product. It's a visibility product. It's not to be used to alert you in the middle of the night if there's a problem. It's not to be used to check disk IO latency in your environment. It's a visibility product. The ability for you to look into your environment and drill all the way down and see the current state and health of the environment. It'll never take action or allow integration in the sense that it's completely read-only. You can't drive any actions off the back of it. The idea with Reach is you log into it, you see the console, you see the problems, you drill down into them, and at the point where you see your problem, you jump off to the respective console that you need to use. So it'll give visibility into all things. There will be canned views and reports for most people. You can't satisfy everybody. It's just not possible. As my wife says, she can satisfy one person per day, and generally that's not me. So Reach is the very same. But to get around that, I've built an API into it as well. So because I'm gathering all of this rich data from all the pods and all the sites and all the sessions, the API can actually be utilized. So you can reach into Reach and gather all of the data from Reach, and you can do something else with it if you choose to. So it's web-based, and it's a roll-up of escalation requests like licensing across pod and global entitlement visibility. So I'm not going to bore you anymore with details or slides. I'm just going to show you what Reach is. So here's my browser. Reach is a web service. What you do is you download it from the Flings site, you install it on a Windows server or a Windows desktop device. Obviously, if you're going to install it on the desktop, you don't want a big Horizon environment. If you have a big Horizon environment, just use a standard Windows server. You log into it the first time. The default credentials are provided to you as part of the installer, and you add your first pod connection. So what you do is you add your connection server. It'll discover all of your other pods. It'll add them all in, and then once it's reached into the environment the first time, it'll pull back a dashboard of everything that you have in your environment. So in my case here, on the dashboard, it's telling me that I have 6 healthy pools, one pool with an issue, 2 security servers, 1 good and 1 bad, my gateways, my unified access gateways, my vCenters. It gives me a snapshot of all the sessions across all the environment, which is the most active vCenter, which is the most active pool. If you have farms and applications in here, these will show up too, which is the most active site, your global application entitlements, and your global desktop entitlements, and it'll stack these depending on which is the busiest. You'll get some visibility into user session status. This can be drilled down into, so you'll get an at a glance of what your users are doing, and you get a roll up of all your vCenter statistics here as well. So you'll see that the vCenter data, and that's broken, so I'll have to fix that. Anyway, you can, from here, we can see that there are currently 2 alarms, so we can drill that into the alarms. We can see that at the moment, this security server has an SSL certificate issue, and this pool has a resourcing issue. So before I drill into the actual, nuts and bolts of this, there are some, canned reports, I said. So you can get your licensing usage across the environment, as reported by Horizon API. You can report on usage of a farm, global application entitlement, pool, pod, site, vCenter, and it'll give you a lovely graph of the usage over whatever time frame you request. Similarly, you can do reports based on peak unique users across an entire site and peak UAG usage. From an overview point of view, you can see your sites, your pods. So let's drill into one of these, let's say unified access gateways. So we can drill into our unified access gateways here. Reach will actually connect directly to the unified access gateways and pull all the statistics back and health checking of them. So not only can it connect into Horizon, it also supports UAGs. So for example, with this UAG, I can drill into it. At the moment, it's not doing anything, but I can see that the health status of the UAG is perfect. I can see the protocol details, so how many connections are coming through, the Horizon configuration itself and how it works, the UAG configuration, and of course whether it's in Crease mode or not. I can see other members of this load balance. So because I can compare the UAG configuration, I can see that these UAGs are part of a load balance, and it'll show me the connectivity across all of them, the sessions that are coming through that UAG, and the alarms too. So from a UAG point of view. From a vCenter point of view, you can see, a lot of the information that's only specific to Horizon from a vCenter point of view. So you get your CPU, your memory, and your storage usage. You get which site this vCenter is in, which pod is in, the connections to the connection server, and the URL, so you can jump off. Remember earlier I said, Reach isn't designed to fix everything. It's designed to drill down into where the problem is, at which point you can jump off. So from here, I can go ahead and jump into the vCenter console, or I can download this data set to do something with. Specific alarms for this vCenter. You can view the clusters inside of that vCenter. You can view the host and the performance of the hosts in that vCenter, the data stores and their usage, and whether or not they host workloads, and the desktop pools that are on this vCenter. So speaking of desktop pools and alarms, I can drill that into this pool, for example. I can see that the capacity is at 100% usage. All machines are in use. I can see that it belongs to this vCenter, this pod, this site. I can, look at the counts, the machines, the sessions, the active. I can drill into the sessions and I can see which users are using the session, and then you can track them all the way back up, and the alarms specifically of that pool. Same thing for farms, although you get RDSH servers this time, so you can see how many sessions are on each of the RDSH servers, the max sessions, the load preference, the state of the host, what VM, what applications are available in that farm, etc., etc. And from that point, you can go ahead and jump off and open the console of that connection server in that pod belonging to that farm, and you can jump in and troubleshoot your problem should you wish to. So the idea of that's a million mile an hour overview of reach. It does so much more. For example, you can do so there's an API we'll cover off in a second. You can tune your alarms. So which alarms do you want to consider active in the console? And to each one of these alarms, for example, with vCenter, we'll measure free CPU, measure memory, measure data store. You can also choose to send notifications too. So for example, if we click choose notifications here, you can choose to send notifications to SNM or SMTP, to Slack, or process output. So when I introduced this feature, many people started asking for many different ways to raise alarms, and I quickly realized that I didn't want to add them all. So the process output is the key feature here. It's the write your own feature, because you can put a script in here and the alarm will be passed in as JSON data, and you can choose whatever you want to do with it after that fact. So it pumps the alarm detail into your script does whatever you want to do with it, and it sends it off. So that's reach in a nutshell. The API is extremely rich as well. So all of the data that I have up there, oh, that's annoying. I'll have to fix that. But the long and the short of it is, the idea is you can take any of the data that Reach currently has in its console and do whatever you want with it. I have a PowerShell example up on GitHub on how you can pull that data, and it goes from there. I'm going to stop and pause for questions here before I move on. VROps. So VROps have gone their own direction. Chris, do you want to cover VROps, because I'm not quite sure where they are right now.
Well, so if you guys noticed on the deprecations and removal slide, so VROps, V4H, so VROps for Horizon, which came with Horizon 7, is no longer supported in Horizon 8. So it's, if you're using it, you can certainly say on Horizon 7.13, you have 2 more years of support, but it's not going to be ported to Horizon 8. Saying that, there is a new management pack coming out for VROPS, which is going to support the desktop space. I don't know the timing on that, but yeah, that's kind of the thing that PM is recommending is folks look at Control Up, other solutions like that, or certainly reach out to your the TAM and figure out when it may be coming into cloud-based VROPS.
The other thing to bear in mind is VROps gathers a lot of session-specific performance data, vCenter-specific performance data. Reach isn't about the performance data. It's about giving your administrators a dashboard or an alarm when your farms become available, your connection servers become unavailable, your UAGs become available. Just it's the quick console that they're going to go to should you hear murmurs of an issue in a remote site. You can log into Reach. Reach will tell you exactly the state of all of your sites, all of your pods, all of your pools, all of your farms, and then you can jump off and potentially troubleshoot the issue in VROps or the Horizon console or vCenter or wherever. That's the idea of Reach. It's the top down. And just to note as well that there is a really nice mobile view here as well. I like to show this off because I annoyed somebody with it recently. So even if you're mobile and you're active and you're on the go, you can actually log into Reach on your mobile phone, and you'll get a view of exactly what's going on in the environment as you go forward. So that's my demo. So as I mentioned, the API, you can go ahead and you can pull the data out of Reach. You can and do whatever you want with it from a PowerShell point of view. And the idea is it doesn't matter how many pods or sites or farms or UHEs or whatever you put behind it, Reach will just ingest it, poll it every 2 minutes or configurable value, gather all that data up, perform the health checking, send you notifications if you want them, otherwise report alarms in the console. What is it? It's a C# application written in ASP.NET Core 2.2, and it's got a web application and REST API. It's Angular because that's what VMware does. We can deploy it as a service, as a container. Nobody's asked for it yet, so if you do want it, ask me for it on the Fling site, and REST API to derive the data how you choose. See fit. From a requirements point of view, Windows Server 2016 and 2019 have both been tested, Windows 10, 1809 and upwards, but don't use it for large scale. You can use it on any version of Horizon you wish. There's no license requirement. The lowest version I test is 7.5.1. 7.5.6 is probably the best case scenario for the lower end, and then 7.10.2 and above have all features in there. Just a word of warning, I think I saw Phil Hebert on the call. We've had one or two issues in customer sites with Reach where the Horizon API has, and this is the Horizon API, the connection server side API, has one or two issues when you're querying it heavily. And you need to hotfix it. Just to point out that it's not necessarily Reach that can cause this problem. VROps and PowerShell can also cause this problem. But if you're running 7.10, make sure you get up to 7.10.2. If you're running 7.11 or 7.12, don't deploy it until you head to the Fling site or head to the documentation. It'll outline the hotfix that you need to apply for that. And 7.13 has the hotfix rolled in. Finally, this happened in one of our customers as well. Don't deploy multiple instances of Reach. Just deploy one of them. The amount of querying it's doing to the connection servers, you don't need to do multiple times. Just do it from one server, please. Fun facts. Okay, so from a deployment point of view, we've hit 50,000 users in 20 pod scale quite happily. When we first tried it, it was 30 minutes, but it's now down to 2 minutes per query time. And I'm particularly proud of this one. With 100 UAGs configured, it queries them in less than 10 seconds. It pulls all their health data back, and it caused an international diplomacy issue in a customer with their outsourcer because their outsourcer was telling them that they were performing maintenance at night, but Reach was telling them otherwise. So it caused a little bit of an issue there, which was funny, but however. So what's happened since release? Lots of bug fixes. I've added vCenter, as you saw. I've improved the layouts. Alarms and triggers are in there. Nested groups are in there. UAG statistics are in there. SMTP and Slack. Historical reporting and UAGs by load balancer. The next pieces that are coming are going to be end-to-end session visibility. So you'll be able to drill from a user session all the way up through the desktop, the vCenter, the pool, the connection server, the UAG, and down again, should you wish to. We're going to add application usage reporting. So, for example, if you want to see how many users are using what application throughout the day, it'll be in there. App volumes, health and statistics. That's going to take me a considerably longer amount of time, but it is coming. The console is going to be able to receive push notifications. At the moment, as you click around, it'll update in the background, but it'll start to receive push notifications in the next release. And whatever people ask me for the most, you'll see that the comment section on Reach's Fling site is very, very active, and I try to respond at least once or twice a day. So if you want something in it, put it in there. I'm going to take the questions now. Can this be run on a host with a VDI desktop host licensing? I'm not fully sure I understand that question. There's no licensing restriction with Reach itself. I assume you mean the VMware Horizon licensing. I'm not particularly au fait with licensing, Chris. If they have the Horizon license, how does that work? The desktop only license. They can't run anything other than the server components, right?
I don't really understand it either.
Can we get that to?
I don't think you'd want to run it inside the VM. I mean, you probably inside of a VM environment necessarily, would you? I mean, you probably just spin up just a regular VM and run it there, right?
I think it was more of a specific licensing question because I believe.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect any licensing. I mean,
let's take that question offline, and we'll So if you take that question to your TAM or follow up after this call, I'll run that one down. This is certainly needed spot on. Can it be installed? Don't install it on the connection server. You can run it on a standalone server. It doesn't require much of a compute point of view, but don't put it on a connection server. Connection servers are very busy, and we don't want to cause any kind of cross communication issues. So please don't. Can you advise if 7.12? It is with 7.12, but there is a private hotfix you're going to require. If you check the documentation on the Fling site, the hotfix is there and you can get it. Okay, awesome. So that is Reach. Horizon session recording. This was a Fling that I've had out for 2 years or so, and it was there was a little bit of interest for people who wanted it, but when COVID hit, suddenly it became it became a P0 issue with Paranoid Corporation. So what session recording is exactly what you'd expect. When a user starts a blast session in VMware Horizon, you can record exactly what they do in that session. It's a standalone Fling at the moment. The Fling composes of an agent and a server. And when you deploy it, you have a couple of configuration options, but the net is you get a management console from which you can view all the recordings that have occurred, and you go from there. So again, I'm not going to bore you with details. I'll just show you. So the session recording, again, just like Reach, it's a web-based application. You deploy it on a server somewhere, and it begins to it can act as the recording server itself. You upon first log on, you get your information about the server name, where you're recording to. We'll come back to that later. How many recordings are active, what's finished, what recordings today in regards to size and total recording data. So the dashboard will show you the last 20 recordings here. So you can see at the moment I've got a session there that's active actually with recordings on my Windows 10 dev box. So let's drill into that for argument's sake. You can see here that this session has been, disconnecting and reconnecting throughout the day. So each one of these is a separate time slice. You'll see there, this first one is 2 hours. And if I press play, you'll see that it belongs to this user. Here's basically what the user saw throughout the day, some of the details about the session. You can lock it so that it doesn't get deleted as part of the cleanup process. You can go ahead and download the recordings to watch in VLC later. And you'll notice that it says active with chunks down here. What this means is throughout the day, as a session is recording, they will it'll keep uploading data every 5 minutes or every 5 megs, so that even if the session crashes, the machine blue screens or whatever else, you'll have some recording data. That's just the way it works. So when it says active with chunks, it just means the session hasn't ended yet, and when it does end, you'll get the remaining data to play it back. But for now, it's there. It's fairly simple in the sense that you'll see that you can go into recordings here and search for specific recordings. So you can choose your timeline, which pool or farm you want to search for, and a username hint. Once you search, you get all those answers back. From a configuration point of view, it's very simple. It supports LDAP integration. There's a local user account built in if you don't want to use LDAP. The client settings, there's a question there, Brian. This answers your question. You can notify the users or not. There are legality challenges around this. So in some countries, you have to tell the user. In some countries, you're not even allowed to do so. So that's something that you need to take local. But you can notify the user should you wish to. This is the chunk size. So again, the smaller chunk size means that the more data you'll get in the eventuality of an agent crash and the upload interval. So for example, in this case, if the recording hits 5 megs, it begins to send another chunk to the server, or if the recording hasn't been uploaded in 2 minutes, it'll send additional bits to the server. The criteria are very simple in the sense that you can record local sessions, remote sessions, and specific users and specific groups. So you can do a combination of all 3 of these. And in the latest version as well, there's now also the ability to do it with PowerShell. So there's an API. You could use UEM or anything else to record a user based on whatever criteria you want. You can run a PowerShell command and it'll start recording the session. And finally, the server settings themselves. You can configure your HA options here and the conversion details. So getting back to the presentation, there's a standalone option for dev test environments where it's just a single recording server recording on local disk and a local database, which is just a flat SQLite database. Or you can go, highly available with a load balancer in front of the recording servers, an NTFS share for the storage, and Microsoft SQL or Postgres database to store the session information. And coming soon, this is going to product. It's not 100% clear as to which drop, but it will be soon. So that's going to be a feature of Horizon soon. Finally, I know we're tight on time, but just to call out the help desk agent, this one's been around for about 2 years, but in case anybody's not aware of it, this is really a quality of life improvement for your help desk agents. The ability to have a native help desk experience for them in their Windows desktops today. So it downloads as a simple application. The users or the help desk user signs in as themselves against the connection server, and from here they can go ahead now and they can search for sessions. So Control F12 oh no, that's broken. You'll see that there's a little agent here. You can go and search for users. So type in Andy here. It'll list back. What happened? Where did it go? There we go. Sorry, unfortunately that was pinned to the top. But the search results will give you back all the users across all the pods and the entire environment as to where their session is. So really quick and easy way to find them. You can double click on the session to get into it, which will pull you back information about the session, just like it does in Help Desk Web, but natively in Windows, so you don't have to manage the browser. You get the dashboard of the performance, the logon duration. You get a user experience rating up here. You get machine info, the information about the machine on vCenter. You get the entitlements this user has. You get performance metrics of the blast protocol that the user is using in real time. You get the applications that they're currently running and a process list. You can kill them. Further, you can actually go in and interact with their session, log off, disconnect, send, remote control. You can restart or reset their machine. You can connect directly to vCenter and you can perform vCenter specific commands, or you can jump into the pool. So here's a pool view, for argument's sake, of the machines in the pool and the sessions that are running there. You can see details about the session, and you can take multi-session actions here as well if you choose to. And finally, just to highlight that if you double click the agent, you get an environment view of all the pods, all the farms, all the connection servers, vCenter, hosts, data stores. So it gives them an at-a-glance look at the state of the environment. But that was a whirlwind tour. That's the help desk agent Fling. So these are the links to the Flings themselves. I'll make sure to include them, or I'll make sure they're included in any communication that comes after this recording. But yeah, they are my Flings. I will open to questions.
I think we handled all the questions in line, but man, that was perfect. It's exactly 12:30 and we're finishing up, no questions. So thanks, Andrew. Great Flings, awesome Flings. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, this was really good content today. So Chris and Andrew, really appreciate you going over everything. I almost foresee a Horizon tools deep dive in the future, but I won't, sign you up for anything just yet. But it really was good stuff. So for everyone on the call, as we mentioned at the beginning, this session was recorded and your TAM can make it available to you. And if you have questions that didn't get addressed today, be sure to reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. And please join us next month when we'll be looking at ransomware trends and VMware solutions that can help with obtaining intrinsic security. That will be on December 10th. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again for joining us again today. And we look forward to seeing you next time.